It's a three-pronged attack. Subliminal, liminal, and superliminal.
Superliminal?
I'll show you. Hey, you!
Read Dance of Frozen Death, available on Amazon Kindle. Link in the description.
Yeah, alright.
I'm in.
Greetings, fellow mortals. When I made my last Harry Potter video, I made a point of not liking to pick on the series too much. It feels like low-hanging fruit. It's a children's story through and through. It doesn't make me a high intellectual to point out that J.K. Rowling didn't exactly think the magic system through. Of course, this is a woman that doesn't exactly think anything through, including her terrible tweets and public views. All the woman had to do was shut up and she would have been made a saint by multiple generations of people.
Hey, shut up! No, you shut up!
But that's not the concern for today. Real life nonsense is more sad than anything else. I prefer to ignore the author of anything unless they're as bad as Rurouni Kenshin's creator or an entertainer like Bill Cosby. But I suppose that Michael Jackson is still beloved for his music despite being a terrible fusion of those two people. Instead, I try to focus on the art. If I like your content, I don't tend to care what type of person is making it. To an extent, I get that knowing that good art comes from good people can make you feel good.
That's understandable.
So let's focus on enjoying the art, or in this case, ripping it apart. There's nothing harder to effectively pull off in storytelling than time travel. Actually, no, that's not completely true. There's nothing harder to effectively pull off in storytelling than science fiction time travel. Magical time travel can work. The reason for that is because you don't have to explain anything with magic. It doesn't have to make complete sense. It's magic. It's a special force beyond our understanding. Science fiction, however, has to establish rules that will never truly work because the logic doesn't make sense.
Now think about that. That does not make sense.
Even the best time travel stories fall apart at least a little bit. Back to the Future is top tier and you still don't want to think about it too hard. Unless you operate off the idea that time is a unique force in the universe that doesn't exactly make sense. Kind of like how things were explained away in X-Men Days of Future Past. But that's more magic than science anyway. The hard part of time travel is that it is so impossible that even science dreams seem unrealistic. There is no amount of energy possible to rewind the entropy in the universe.
Why won't you wake up?
Time travel doesn't exactly work, so the harder that you explain it, the bigger the leaps in logic need to be. It reminds me of Looper. They tried to explain how a person could meet themselves or affect the future, but some things fell apart. It is a good movie though. I actually prefer when a movie just shrugs and asks us to go with it. The Terminator franchise, Bill and Ted, and Edge of Tomorrow come to mind. Don't worry about the technology. It doesn't matter. Don't think about how it works.
Don't think, Remy!
And that's why I think that magical time travel actually works. Like with About Time. That's one of my favorite time traveler movies. Oh, and I need to eventually read/watch The Time Traveler's Wife to see if that works. Maybe I'll suggest that the next time that my wife is in a romantic movie mood. Hopefully, the way that time travel functions in that story works as well as time turners. Now, that might feel like a twist. This video is about time turners and the breaking of the universe, right? But I actually really enjoy how time turners function in Prisoners of Azkaban. It's actually my favorite movie/book out of the bunch, and the time turner is no small part of it.
Oh, beautiful.
I thought that it was really creative, fun, and had a cool use on how time travel was used so that the characters could save themselves. Except there was one problem, and it was an issue that How It Should Have Ended brought up a long time ago. Why is it that time turners never returned? They were the ultimate form of magic. If I was Harry Potter, I would keep one of them with me at all times. You know, just so that I could deal with the end of the year crisis that happened like clockwork.
There's a haircut you could set your watch to.
In fact, why didn't Dumbledore or Voldemort use time turners? Shouldn't the series have become a time war? I mean, they were easy to use. A teenage girl was given one to take extra classes. It can't be that hard to use one or to get one, unless there is a secret time paradox that canceled time turners out, because that's the biggest problem with introducing time travel into a series that isn't about time travel. Unless the author has a proper explanation, the entire story is going to fall apart. Either the story needs to focus on it or it won't work.
Failure is a part of the process to becoming successful.
That's why it is important to properly plan out what's going to happen in a story and to remember the powers and abilities that have been introduced already. Time turners were explained away by the fact that terrible things have happened to wizards that have meddled with time. That's a very vague explanation and doesn't work considering that Hermione used one for a full year without any problems. Instead of addressing the issue, the plot was completely dropped. Well, more like it was thrown away immediately in a desperate attempt to get everyone to forget about it.
Who? Top men.
Oddly enough, the fix to the problem is really easy. Merely make a limit on how much someone can use the power. Let's start with something simple. Just take a use limit. It could be that when someone uses a time turner, they have a limited amount of time that they can use it. Let's make it a year. After the first use, a person can only use a time turner for a year after that first use. If they do it anytime after that, then they will destabilize themselves and become a pile of goo. Or make the consequences of using a time turner more serious. Maybe the cost is drastic cuts to someone's lifespan. That would explain why Voldemort and Dumbledore wouldn't use it personally. And if they force someone else to use it, then they are the ones that pay the consequences. Something tangible like the will of magic knows who's in charge of the time travel. It's nothing concrete, but I'm just spitballing ideas here, because that's the problem with time travel in a non-time travel focused story or franchise. It breaks everything in the universe. Another great example of this would be Avengers Endgame. Now, the power of time was introduced with the Time Stone, and I could argue that it was used properly in Doctor Strange because the power itself didn't solve the problem. Doctor Strange used the ability creatively and endured great suffering in order to win. Then, he decided to protect the Time Stone because he didn't want it to be ever used for nefarious purposes. Avengers Endgame did not have that level of restraint. Instead, the Avengers travel back in time to collect MacGuffins and kind of broke the rules of space-time. They shatter everything that happened in the past to the point that alternate versions of people died, and they treated it like it was no big deal, except that it is. Sometimes. A few characters were brought back to life, others weren't. Some new timelines were important, except when they weren't. Only sometimes. It makes sense, except that it doesn't at all in any way whatsoever.
I'm so confused.
I have seen several hardcore MCU fans swear to me that all of this makes sense, but I have seen every one of the movies and shows, and it kind of feels like the entire franchise has fallen apart. Instead of one cohesive story broken up, it's just a series of wacky adventures that doesn't really matter, doesn't make a whole lot of sense, and doesn't have a lot of thought put into it. Instead, we have to look at the steadily worse looking CG, consume the media, and never ask questions. Personally, I've grown tired of stories that demand that I don't think and don't ask any questions. That's at least some sort of positive that I can give time turners. At least the entire franchise doesn't fall apart because of them. They're just thrown away because they do break the universe. So I suppose that the lesson that we should learn from all this is to think about the media we consume, and if the creators demand that we don't consider the implications of everything they're presenting, then they're the problem, not us.
Nobody tells me it's them, not me. If it's anybody, it's me.
All right.
So if you see time travel in fiction, hold the writer to the fire. Even a self-published author like me needs to think. I view storytelling as one of the most important forms of art because it expresses the human experience. And I don't think that there's anything more human than desire to control time. We all feel the cruel passage of time, and to treat it like no big deal diminishes our experiences. But what do you think? Am I completely off base here? What do you think about time travel in fiction? Do you prefer sci-fi or magical time travel? Please leave a comment down below. I'd love to hear your perspectives. And thank you so much for watching. If you like my takes on storytelling, please consider subscribing and liking the video. It would really help me out. Also, please remember that I just released my original novel, Dance of Frozen Death, Book 1 in the Written in Stone series. I hope that you will check it out. Link is in the description. I appreciate you. Do not despair.